Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. This month, the Stamping Society is doing Christmas in July. And I have come up with this, I say, stunning card. I did learn some lessons along the way, so I'm going to show you what not to do. One of those being using like a brand new Wink of Stella that is like very juicy. I am actually using different paper on the version I'm going to make right now. And as I'm not sure if you can tell, but my letters are lower than my frame. I used foam strips on there and then used just Stampin' Dimensionals there. And yeah, it didn't work. So I have used a couple of products in here. I don't have a whole lot of new Christmas. So for the sentiment, I'm using Create with Friends. We've got the Celebrate there. I am using Poinsettia petals, of course. This carried over from last year. And I'm also using the new Festive Foliage. This is in the annual catalog, and I love it. I love that it's this big background stamp. I'm using, what colors am I using? I'm using Evening Evergreen. I'm using this amazing gold. I can never remember what this is called, but it's rose gold and gold. I want to say it's like glimmer paper, but nothing will come off of this. I am using one of the dies from the Color and Contour bundle, the Contour Scallop dies, and this is like the middle one. If you don't have these dies, you could use the Stitch So Sweetly dies. So I am using, I'll put the dimensions in the tutorial, but this is what I'm doing here. And in case you didn't see my blog hop project, I was on an Evening Evergreen kick. This is that same Festive Foliage. I just stamped it onto my tag, and then I've got an adorable stamp set bundle. This is the Season's Blessings bundle, and love it. Love, love, love. So that is my blog hop project. Not a whole lot to it, but I mean, if you're going to mass produce, you don't want to have a card that has a whole lot to it, right? So I have gone ahead, just because I don't want this to take forever, I have gone ahead and I've die cut the holly leaves out of the Evening Evergreen Shimmer Vellum. Look at that. It's basically trying to compete with my poinsettia, which was just cherry cobbler, but I mean, it's oh so gold now. And then instead of using Real Red or Cherry Cobbler or Mary Merlot, I actually used the new ombre glimmer paper. So this is kind of like a pink poinsettia, and I am loving it. You can tell I'm loving the shimmer on this card, but this is too much. Way, way, way too much. So I have actually gone ahead and I have embossed this and fussy cut it. Now on my first one, I went really extra. Like I went into all these little spaces, and I wouldn't recommend it. I was really hoping that my brother Scan and Cut would come to the rescue on this one, but it did not. So I didn't go quite as far. You can see that the E there is, it's not perfect, and it doesn't have to be. And if you don't want to do any fussy cutting on that, then just stamp it and emboss it on a tag, and then you don't have to worry. Okay, so I am going to start by die cutting my little frame. So I will run this through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and be right back. So you can definitely use that inner rectangle for something else. I just love the brushed look to this. I would recommend putting it through once and then coming back out. This is just once, and while it comes out okay, it's a little bit finicky to get it out of there. Okay, so first things first, we've got all the pieces die cut. Let me show you a tip for this, just in case you didn't discover this last year. But for the poinsettia dies, you can cut out just a leaf, or you can cut it out and emboss it. I love them cut and embossed at the same time, so I've just used washi tape and attached all of these. Same with the poinsettias. You can absolutely take that tape off if you want to just die cut, but I find this the best way to use that bundle, so I've already gone ahead and done that. But let's get this on our Stamparatus. I find with any background stamps, I always like to use the Stamparatus. I can't use that giant block, and I also, you can tell I've already used this. I worry that I'm not going to ink up the whole background. So this way, if I miss a spot, say in the middle, I can come back and hit it again. So I'm using an Evening Evergreen matte. And I want to basically line it up before I ink it, make sure it's going to be in the right spot. And because I'm inking up that whole thing, I'm not using a magnet. I can use a little bit of seal on the background if I want, just to keep it in place. So that looks good. I think I'm going to just leave it there and cross my fingers. I'm going to ink it up. And every time I've used this stamp set, I have found that there was one area that didn't ink up. So I highly suggest the Stamparatus for an image this big and intricate. Give it a good press. Now, I'm not using it right now, but I do use a dry erase eraser brush to get a nice even pressure. I know that there's a bunch of different tools out there, but I find that's easy. Okay, so see, I didn't get the best image right there, so I can press it down again, get better coverage. And there we go. Now we're not even going to see the entire image, so it's not the end of the world if we miss something, but I highly recommend the Stamparatus for something that big. Okay, and I think that's all the actual stamping we're going to do. Now with that little scrap of the gold, I do need to cut out the flower center. And there are two different ones. The first time I did the one that cuts out the circles, although they actually all stayed in. This time I'm going to do the one that just embosses it. So I will be right back with that. So this one just stays all as one piece. You don't need to worry about anything coming apart. Although with that one, you can just put a little bit of washi tape or something on the back to keep it all together. Totally doable. I am going to use a little bit of liquid adhesive to adhere this. This card comes together quite quickly. There is quite a bit of die cutting, so you may not want to mass produce, but maybe for those special someones in your life, you might like something like this. I thought that by using Evening Evergreen and some cherry cobbler, although it's going to be lighter in this instance, it was going to be nice and regal. So I'm not going to use foam adhesive strips this time because it popped it up too high. And I didn't think about that when I was putting it on there. If you've ever noticed, if you make a shaker card and you use those foam strips, you have probably noticed that dimensionals aren't quite the same height. So that is why I'm using these little minis. Like I said, if you don't want to fussy cut that sentiment, just stamp it on a tag and take it off. We're not doing any kind of shaker card or anything fancy here. We're just leaving a bit of negative space in the middle so that we can see that nice stamped background. These just don't want to come off. We will put that pretty much right in the middle. Isn't that pretty? So now we can do a little bit of gluing here. I don't usually like to use liquid glue when I'm adhering glimmer paper because I feel like it takes forever to set. But we're basically just going to set this and forget it. And those leaves will just get tucked in. We might as well put our little center in here. Beautiful. You can fold up or curl your leaves a little bit. You can fold them in the middle so that they look a little more realistic and less like cardstock. I like to do that fold because typically when you see a poinsettia, it's folded, not necessarily pushed up like these petals would be. Beautiful, right? And it just takes a few seconds to do that, right? So when I'm using dark cardstock, I always like to use an anti-static powder tool. Unfortunately, Stampin' Up! Doesn't carry them anymore, but you can use cornstarch or baby powder, just something to wipe the surface of any static or any oils from your hands. I am using Versamark, and we'll do some gold embossing powder. That gold just adds to the regalness. Now you can see I didn't do what I said that I do. I didn't remove the static from that. So I want to show you a way that you can do that if you have forgotten. If you forgot or just didn't think to remove the static, you can just take a dry brush and kind of move it around. I do find giving the cardstock a good tap will remove a lot of extra. It should only be sticking where the Versamark is. So you can give it a good tap, you can brush it away, you can blow on it. Any of those or all of those combined will work. And I am going to use my heat tool. I'll warm it up and I'm going to set this on high. So there we go. And you can just fussy cut it. You can die cut a tag. You can do whatever you want to do. I am going to not take that card. I want this one. And I'm going to put some dimensionals, but I need to be sure that I'm not putting them in the wrong spot. So if I put a dimensional between this E and the B, it's just going to pop it up further. And then for it all to be even, I would have to have 2 dimensionals everywhere else. So we'll stay away from that E and the L and the E. We can go between the R and the A here. And if the minis are too big, you can cut them. You can use little bits and pieces from the edges. I love that. I love that every little piece can be used. No waste. You can use these little strips on a longer part. So for that middle part, we're going to put a little bit of liquid glue just so that it stays down. And you should be able to feel where that dimensional is. There we go. That's better. Can you see how it starts lower, comes up, and then goes down? It's almost like a bridge. Okay, so now I can put some adhesive on that flower. I want to have it so that it stays within the confines of the card. So I'm going to turn it a little bit just so that I don't have it so far over, because these petals, there's 2 of them. That one, it's the longest one, and I hope that makes sense. I do want this to be kind of off center. With so many elements competing for your attention, I find that having the flower offset helps to kind of balance it. I don't know. Okay, so that is going to take some time to set because, like I said, it's glimmer paper going on to glimmer paper. So you could use tear and tape, you could use Stampin' Seal, you could use whatever you want. But while we are waiting, and I just realized I missed this step. It was actually an afterthought the first time too. So I took a little bit of Evening Evergreen, and let's pop this off because it's really not sticking. I think I am going to use another type of adhesive. I put some tear and tape on the inside of that frame, basically right where that glue ends. I'm going to put a little piece of tear and tape. This card ought to be set sometime tomorrow. Okay, so now I'm going to make kind of a little Z of ribbon. And we'll just have a cute little design. Now, the reason I'm using tear and tape is because I don't want to use a million glue dots. So I want to adhere it there. I want to adhere it in the middle. And then again at that end. Nicely, though. See what I mean? Now, it's a little bit long there. It's kind of covering part of that T, but that's okay. So it just adds a little bit extra. I'm feeling like this piece is a little too long. There we go. So it just adds a little something. So let's use a little piece of tear and tape on here too, since we have it out. And that way we don't have to worry about it coming off. But we are almost done. I did not stamp a sentiment inside the first one. Okay, so again, there's that longest petal. I don't want that to be too far in. So let's do it right about there. So my second last step is to use some of the in color jewels. And these have been so underrated, let me tell you. Once you see them in person, they are just so stunning. I actually only have 4 and I don't use even numbers. So I'm going to have to be kind of strategic in how I put these on, because if you see in my first card, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that one's all extra. This one's like, hey, I want some. Let's put 1 in here just to draw the eye back in. Now, I could color some of these, but you know what? I'm okay with 3 on that one. But these, I swear to you, they are so underrated. They're faceted. They are just gorgeous. Like you can see a little bit of yellow in there. Now my last step, other than the inside, is to use some Wink of Stella. And remember, it really went overboard there. I'm just going to add little dots where these circles are. They almost look like berries. Just to add a little bit of sparkle. Not like this card is lacking sparkle, but it's just a little tiny step. Anywhere you see a dot. And you could add more if you want. I feel like we need one down here, one over there. And you could add, like you could flick it, but I don't find I get a whole lot coming out. When I find a whole lot coming out, it's like this. Okay, so I didn't stamp anything on the inside the first time. I really think like celebrate could be for anything. You could have someone who celebrates a birthday around Christmas. It's celebrate, but you've got a winter flower. It doesn't have to be Christmassy. But we do need an insert. And it would be really nice to have some of that festive foliage on the inside, kind of with some soft succulent. Very light, like stamped off and on the side. So let's try that. I still have this stamp mounted because I have to clean it before I put it away. But let me use a baby wipe and get all that evening evergreen off. And let's use some soft succulent stamped off and a little bit of a masking technique. Can't really do this on the first one unless I mask it off again. But you know how sometimes you're working on a project and the idea doesn't necessarily come to you right away. You need to wait a little bit. That's what this is. It's been a couple days since I designed this, so now the idea is coming to me. How do I want to do this? I'm kind of thinking I want just a little bit on the edge. So I think we will do it like that. What have we got to lose, right? It's just a blank card base or card mat at this point. Nothing to lose. So I'm going to ink up the whole thing with soft succulent because the last thing I want to happen is the part that goes onto the card isn't actually inked up. Now, this is probably going above and beyond, but not even straight. Remember to use your grid to line it up. Not sure it's entirely straight on there, but now what I want to do, let's take it off for now because I do want to stamp it off. I think I want to stamp it off twice. Okay, so now let's do that. And like I said, worst case, it's only a mat. We throw it out and start over. But I'm thinking this might look really nice on the inside. Now, you probably don't need that Post-it there because I've got this situated where it's not going to go really far. I like it. It's not stamped off perfectly, but I hope that you get the point that I'm going for there. We're going to leave this one alone because I just know that if I try fixing it, I'm going to mess it up. So whenever I do the insert, I always like to use Stampin' Seal. Those darn glue worms, if using liquid glue, just drive me nuts. So if I'm doing an insert or I am adhering designer series paper, I like to use Stampin' Seal. I'm almost wondering, do we want that? Let's do that on the outside. You can't miss it, right? Okay, so that is my card for this month. I thank you so much for watching and for your support of the Stamping Society. I would love to know in the comments below which one is your favorite. Do you love the glimmer paper? Do you love the over Wink of Stella cherry cobbler poinsettia? I wish it would focus for me. Okay, so let me know. Wink of Stella, glimmer paper. We will see you soon, my crafty friends. Bye.